Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Sara Wiseman. Today we are moving into some new ideas. We're going to be continuing to work with the Gabriel messages. You can get that online. It's been a rough end to the year of 2024. We've had a sort of a starting off with the whimper and quite a bit of terror and fear in a lot of people's minds about what this year will hold. And I wanted to provide to you this idea that I think is helpful as we go through our lives. A lot of us have been taught that we need to do things a certain way, behave in a certain way, follow along in a certain way, achieve in a certain way, look a certain way, dress a certain way, have the right beliefs, have the right diet, have the right habits. And it's only by behaving in this certain way, by being, good enough for the universe, that things are going to work. And we still have this idea, even if we are kind of far along on what I would call a general non-religious belief system, this kind of belief in consciousness. We still have this idea that we have to get things right, or we have to do things right so that it'll all work out. And I see this a lot in people that are still working with old methods of manifesting, like The Secret, or misunderstood ways of looking at thoughts become things, or this idea that you have to hold yourself in high vibration all the time. And I want to have you look at this in terms of, isn't this exactly why, like if you're living in America now, or you're living in a country in which your ancestry immigrated to get away from the people who were trying to control, the people who were trying to set certain beliefs in stone, isn't this really the same thing that they were working on? They were working on this idea of a punishing God, or a punishing universe, if they had that idea, or punishing forces. And if you didn't toe the line, you were gonna not get what you were hoping for, or worse, you'd get punished. So I like to look at this because even though a lot of you guys are very conscious, you may still have these ideas of you have to, I guess, be good or be appropriate to your belief system or follow along. And if you don't, like the whole thing's gonna fall apart. And I want to say the universe isn't like that. The universe really does not care what we do. The universe only hopes that we will become conscious. And what is becoming conscious? Becoming conscious is becoming aware of yourself as human, becoming aware of yourself as part of instead of separate from, and understanding that you can feel and be in this sense of oneness at any time. You don't have to do a special practice to get there. As a lot of you know, I like to dance. I don't worry particularly about what I look like or any of that. I just like that freedom of movement across the floor with other people. And the other day, we had just finished this just really beautiful hour and a half, kind of very wild session of dancing where people were getting all their feelings and process and love and joy and anger and rage and fear, like it was all just being expressed freely. You just do what you want to do and you don't worry about what others are doing, and that's kind of the agreement of that container. And as I was sort of sensing around the room, we were actually talking about why is this so good? Like, why did this work out so well? Why does this bring such a full and whole feeling? And as I kind of looked around at who was there that day, I realized like everyone there was conscious. They were a conscious person. And it is more rare to be rubbing shoulders with conscious people, regardless of what your habits and your groups are, even if they're like, you know, the top new age group or whatever. The people there may or may not be conscious. It's hard to know. Consciousness is this kind of almost like a state of relaxation and ease, regardless of what comes up. It's just sort of this sense of your infinite nature. And once you have that, it doesn't go away. So it's just feeling this. This is what it feels like to be conscious, to be in this relaxed state of trust and okayness, I suppose. This relaxed state of trust and okayness. And to be in a group of people who all had an awareness of the same thing. So that was pretty cool. And then you go out into the world and it's less conscious, right? There's so much separation when we do our regular tasks. And this is what exhausts people. They have this knowing of oneness, and then they go out and nobody else knows. So just looking at that idea. But also going back to this earlier idea of this idea that the universe is not trying to trick you. The universe is not trying to trick you. I'm going to read a little bit from Gabriel messages. Here we go. There is no trick. There is no particular way to open. There are no superstitions to follow. There is no trick or technique. You simply open into awareness, and the soul collective, which is you and also everyone, knows what to do from there. You do not need to believe superstitions about how things should or should not be done. Superstitions, traditions, ancient paths, tricks, and techniques, all of these are systems designed to keep the mind, ego, personality distracted so the mind will relax. When the armor is taken off, the thoughts are taken off, and the distractions are released. The soul comes into radiance. When you free the mind from its beliefs in tricks, techniques, and superstitions, then the soul itself, your soul and your soul, as part of collective soul, which is oneness, is given the grace to be. And I want to go back to some of this because it sort of flies in the face, sort of flies against what we're continually barraged with, doesn't it? You know, I actually, let's see, I'm on social media, but I don't pay too much attention to it. It's my, I don't know, I want to contribute what I receive to the collective, but in terms of what other people provide, I find it's more useful for me to go in and just receive my own messaging from the guides and my own meditative states than to hear what others have received. But I do know from what I do see, even by the, you know, like the larger voices that are out there that are highly respected, shall we say, in maybe we'll call it New Age or spiritual world, there's still a lot of this attachment to this idea of needing to do things a certain way. Again, you have to have a certain diet, you have to wear a certain type of clothing, you have to be monogamous, or you have to be non-monogamous, or you have to use drugs and substances, or you can't use drugs and substances, or these are, you have to have a ritual, you have to use crystals, you can't use crystals. Like, which is it? And what it really is first, it's a matter of preference. As you're growing in your awareness, it's kind of useful to use tools, especially, like cards or other tools. It's kind of useful, meditation techniques. Once you get there, however, you find that the tools aren't really needed anymore. And it's a bit of a leap of faith to go there. Like, a lot of you are really actively involved in your cards, and you feel like your cards provide you with what you need. And in fact, you don't need the cards. They are a tool to assist you in growing your understanding. You can do all of that without any cards. A lot of you believe, and here I'm going to get probably lots of horrible comments on this, but like, a lot of you believe you have to go to these workshops where you take all these kinds of substances to elevate your awareness state. And perhaps, potentially, and a lot of you say, those were the best things that ever happened to me. Maybe, but it's really like, you can't access something that doesn't exist. So if you can access those states with substances, you can also access without anything. You couldn't get there if it didn't exist. Everything in you is whole. You don't need anything to connect into collective soul. This is a hard one, but this idea, like, the universe is not trying to trick you. The universe does not have all these requirements of how you have to do stuff. So especially since these generations are especially sort of breaking away from formalized religion, whatever background, we're moving into this understanding of what I like to use the term, or the term that's been given to me, is direct connection. We can each have direct connection with Source all the time because that's what we're part of. So it's really good to not rebel against an entire system of more parochial, Puritan, morality-based, patriarchal, blah, 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 style of religion. We reject that. That means nothing. And then we go right into a system that's just as rigid and has just as many rules and rituals. Even if the system is so, just come take this substance and everything will be free and easy. That's still a system. So the universe is not trying to trick you that you need a certain system to get there. You don't. So, how do you get there? And so the biggest keys are, I just want to read this back. When the armor is taken off, the thoughts are taken off, the distractions are released, the soul comes into radiance. And how would you do that in your own life? Well, first you could just start eliminating this old idea from the 80s, maybe, like all the shoulds in your life. Like, what should you be doing? Like, those probably, if it's a should, it probably sounds like it's somebody else's idea for you. Maybe you could just make a list of those belief systems about what you should be doing and just refuse to believe those anymore. Like, you're allowed to do this. I should be married. I should lose weight. I should make a certain amount of money. I should have this amount of muscles. I should be this popular. I should have these diet restrictions. I don't know. You have your own, right? But I'm just sort of going through the ones that I commonly hear, like, and take a look at all those. I can only access the universe through cards. I can only access consciousness through substances. I need to move to a different place where there's only consciousness. Consciousness is everywhere all the time. Nothing is required. There is no trick. There is no trick. So when you start taking these armors, these misbeliefs, and just looking at them and saying, you know, I'm not gonna use that one. I'm not gonna hold that one in my little list of things I have to do to please the universe. I'm not gonna do that one. Oh, I'm not gonna do that one either. Well, that one came from my mother, and that one came from my ex-partner, and this one came from some group I was in 30 years ago that I don't even follow anymore. And like, so suddenly the path starts to get clear. And you might still not know who you are yet, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to not have a super strong identity. This is actually the correct way of experiencing yourself as part of collective soul, as infinite soul, part of collective soul. You're not that big of a deal. You are, but you aren't. So just relaxing, looking at all these things you believe and deciding if you didn't think the universe was trying to trick you, if you thought the universe was actually on your side, no matter what you did, what would you do differently and how would you start to live? So everybody, we have, at this time, we're starting our Moon Astrology 2025, depending on where you're listening or when you're listening, course. It's just $22. You can get it on my website, Sara Wiseman. Takes you through the whole year at the new and full moon. So there's sort of this lessons and reflections and teachings and stuff. And it's a great way to kind of mark these planetary changes as they relate to your life. So that could be fun. And of course, we have the Gabriel messages. And of course, you know, I teach and exhort, etc., etc., etc. So go to the website, and thank you for listening. I will be back next time. Thank you.